This presentation introduces the Carousel book format. This book form lends itself to creating a series of theatrical scenes comprised of foreground, middle ground, and background, made from 3 accordion books of various sizes. Here are a few examples I'm showing you that use either 4 or 5 sections. This is a simple book made of uh, construction weight paper of various colors with a brown paper at the back. And you can see that there's different accordions here that are nestled together with the short ones in the front and the long ones in the back. This particular design produces a 4-panel carousel book. One of the things to note is that you need a kind of frame or um, foreground opening, and you can vary that, but it's important that that frame has at least a half an inch or sometimes a little more along all the edges so it'll be sturdy enough. This is an example here of a 5-panel carousel book, and here you can see the variations in the window opening, sometimes a scroll, sometimes a frame, sometimes an arch, sometimes a house shape, etc. And then when seen from above, this carousel book, held with Velcro, produces a kind of star-like shape, and you can see the different accordion sections of varying lengths from short to medium to long to create the foreground, middle ground, and background sections of the book. This one uses color pencil and watercolor and was produced for a high school workshop a few years ago. So as they were making the books, I made one along with them to show how to use the materials and so forth. The last book I have here as an example, also produced for a high school workshop, is a sort of book for dentists. And this is a 4-panel book. This one's done on printing paper like Reeves BFK with marker and colored pencil. And this is sort of almost like a kind of sequence of the same subject, just sort of changing there as if a dentist is looking down your gullet there. So the book I'm going to show you today utilizes 6 sheets of paper. There's 2 that are 19 by 5 inches with a ½ inch tab at each end. There's 2 that are 17 inches by 5 inches with a ½ inch tab at each end, and 2 that are 14½ inches by 5 inches with a tab at only one end. And what I'm doing here is showing the sequence of scoring and folding them to produce those different sections. Now I'm using paper that's equivalent to the size of the front of the book, and I'm roughly drawing out a kind of thumbnail or storyboard for a concept. So in this concept, there's an alien spaceship that leaves another planet that flies to and lands on planet Earth. Each of the scenes has an oval-shaped window in which you're going to see the different information. The planets comes down from the top section and the middle section. In this third section here, I'm drawing the ramp where the alien comes down with a shadow. And I'm varying different ways I'm breaking up the front frame, either with text on the top or the bottom or the side, or in this last instance, as a word bubble that comes off of the side. So those are the 4 sections of the book I conceived. And then I proceeded to draw those out on the various sheets of paper. This is French 100-pound cover weight paper. And you can see that with the 6 sheets of paper for the back, middle, and front, I create these sets of front, middle, and then back as these 4 sets. So what I'm going to show here is how to glue the sections together. And before I do that on the front section, I need to remove an extra tab because I only need one of the tabs to connect the front sections. And then there's an extra tab between the middle and back sections where each of them have tabs on each end. So I'm removing one of those tabs. I've sometimes left both tabs, but it makes the book kind of cumbersome and too thick in those sections. So I suggest removing one of those half-inch tabs. Remember, the lengths of the paper for this are 19 by 5 for the back sections, 17 by 5 for the middle section, and 14.5 for the front section. So I like to use a glue stick for this. It's pretty convenient. It's a wheat paste that's archival. I like the white glue stick as opposed to the blue ones. And what I'm doing is I'm gluing the tab and laying the next sheet on, starting with the back here. And what I like to do is fold it into position so I know that as I'm gluing it, it's not misaligning the sections for the various accordion folds. And if you wanted to, you could put binder clips on those to hold them together for a little while. So here I'm gluing the middle section of the book and removing the paper behind it, putting that in place. You can also use your bone folder to push those sections together. That works very well. Just firm pressure will help that paste attach. Alternatives from glue stick are Yes Paste or Nori Paste. I suggest not using something like PVA because it's a little too wet and loose and is harder to control and doesn't dry quite as quickly. So now I've attached the front sections. Make sure when you're doing this that you've got all the different sections in their appropriate alignment. So you don't want to put panels 3 and 4 in front of panels 1 and 2, for example, and so forth. So now I'm stacking the different accordion levels, and what I'm going to do is use a pamphlet stitch to put together the book in those 3 sections. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of paper the same height as the book, that's 5 inches, folding it in half, and then folding down, about half an inch, 3/4 of an inch from the end. And after being folded in half, this will give me the 3 holes to form a pamphlet stitch. And using this little jig, I will place it in the middle of the book where the sections were glued together, and I like to start by using the pamphlet stitch in that section. And so using an awl, I'll push through 3 holes. And then for this, I'm going to need book thread, wax book thread. In this case, white book thread works well because it kind of disappears. I'm going to make it basically 2.5 to 3 lengths of the height of the spine. And once I've done that, I'll grab a needle, thread the needle, and I'll start with my thread and needle coming from the back side of the book, from the middle section. This is just a basic pamphlet stitch many of you may be familiar with, and I described this in the YouTube video, The Pamphleteer, showing this pattern. And then I come back through on one of the other sides, one side or the other, back through the middle, and then back through the far end to the back side of the book, and then back through the middle again. So this is the 3rd time through the middle. Make sure all my threads are taut. And then here my thread came off of the needle. Takes a moment to rethread it. But what I'll do is go underneath and around the threads that are in the front to form a kind of knot. And then back through the center. And then once it comes back through the center, I can go under at least one of the cross threads and then tie this out with a couple square knots. After I put the knots there, I'll trim off any excess. So then I'm going to repeat this process on the 2 other sections of the book that require the pamphlet stitch. So that first pamphlet stitch is done. That place there and that place there where the other pamphlet stitches will go. And once that is completed, now I have my book held together with pamphlet stitches. And the last step in this process is to take the tabs from the back sides, fold them in, and fold them behind the front and the middle, and Then you can use a couple binder clips to hold this together for a while. And what I like is a nice clean backside, so I don't want to see any tabs on the back of the book. So here you have the finished book being held to there. Hope you enjoy it. It's a fun book to make.